Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Ijaz Ahmed Khan. I am moderating this senior webinar series on COVID-19 pandemic. Alhamdulillah, we are doing our sixth webinar after this pandemic that we started this series. Today, we are here to talk about a very different aspect, but very important aspect about patient care. As you know that patient care involves surgery, and safe surgery and preparedness is an important thing, and that's the topic that we are going to cover today. We have very eminent speakers among us today, and first, before I ask the speakers to come, on behalf of Shifa International Hospital and PGM office, I welcome everyone. We had a very resounding participation from the participants. Last time we had about 400 plus participants so far for today, and we had almost 400 last time as well. We hope this number will increase. This will generate a lot of questions. We know that we cannot answer every question, but please prepare your questions and send your questions, and we'll try to answer at the end of the session. So the first speaker is Professor Ghulam Siddique. Dr. Ghulam Siddique is a well-known surgeon in our area, and Dr. Ghulam Siddique is going to talk about a resumption of laparoscopic surgery during COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Ghulam Siddique.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everybody. Talk about a very important topic today, and that is resumption of laparoscopic surgery during the COVID-19 pandemic. You are all aware that this COVID problem started in Wuhan, rather, not Wuhan. That was in late last year. And initially we thought it was a problem only confined to that particular area or that particular country. And in fact, the whole world didn't take much notice of it. But very soon, when we entered into the new year in 2020, we felt that many countries gradually were affected by the virus. In particular, it was the West, that was Western Europe in the beginning, and later on North America, and later on South America as well. Looking at the pandemic in our part of the world, the first case was discovered or we detected in Pakistan, which was admitted to Aga Khan Hospital in Karachi. That was in on February the 26th. After that, and there was a lot of concern growing that the virus, which was already creating a lot of problem across the globe, was going to affect us. So we were in fact quite panicky, and we tried our level best to stop the virus spreading across the country. In March, by the mid-March, we were almost certain that certain areas, particularly Karachi and interior Sindh, like Sadr areas, they were starting to be affected by the virus, and gradually the rest of the country. We were initially quite smart enough to do lockdowns, trying to contain the virus. It's a political discussion whether that was needed at that time or that is needed now, but we'll come back to the topic. Soon, we felt that the virus was not only affecting the general population, but it was mainly affecting us, the doctors, the healthcare workers, the hospitals. Till this date, we have almost 160,000 patients confirmed, and we have almost 3,000 deaths from the virus. Now, what challenges did we face or we were expecting? The challenges were that the hospitals were soon overwhelmed. That was in the West. And we thought that the West has got, or even the Chinese had so much resources that they were crying that they were short of supplies, they were short of equipment, they were short of personnel because many of them were becoming infected, they were going on quarantine, and they had so many problems. And most of us saw the Italian Prime Minister who apparently came on the television crying. So the concern in our part of the world, in our country particularly, was very obvious. We didn't have that much resources. We didn't have that much logistics, intensive cares across the country, limited number of beds, limited number of resources. So these were the big challenges that we faced, and we were expecting that what we are going to do if we come across that sort of a situation. Now, the other challenge was to reserve beds for COVID positive patients, because that was the priority then. So as a result of that, we had to provide or cancel the elective procedures. We had to cancel, at some stage, we had to stop the OPDs, outpatients clinic even, and we had to concentrate more on COVID positive patients, but at the same time, we had to minimize exposure of our health care professionals. Now, initially what we did was we postponed all our elective cases, like in the rest of the world. Emergency and urgent cases only were dealt with. And that another priority for us was, of course, cancer patients who couldn't wait. Laparoscopic surgeries, I'll come to laparoscopic surgeries. Laparoscopic surgeries, most of them, as we know, they are elective procedures, and they were stopped altogether because of so many reasons, the ones I mentioned already, and also because we were not sure what the laparoscopic surgery, which are mainly aerosol generating procedures, what is going to, how is it going to affect us? Looking at the behavior in the past of the viral infections, particularly the HIV and the human papilloma virus, the recommendations were that we shouldn't do laparoscopic surgeries, rather do rather convert it, even if they are emergency, do open operations. And in fact, in the beginning, we did a few gallbladders, empyemas, and very bad gallbladders. We did it open rather than doing laparoscopic. Very soon, the guidelines from different societies, surgical societies, particularly from Europe and America, they came up. They kept on changing. Even the WHO changes the guidelines, and these societies kept on changing the guidelines as well, because the virus was new to everybody. And ultimately, they came up with the proposal or with the recommendations that emergent cases, particularly in bariatric surgery, if we take bariatric surgery, they said perforated marginal ulcer or obstruction, particularly internal herniation, gastric band migration, or urgent cases like slip band, anastomotic stricture, severe GERD, that can be considered laparoscopically. Now, the reason they said that was that there are many advantages of laparoscopic surgery than conventional open surgery. But for COVID positive patients, of course, you need to have negative operation rooms. And also you need to have designated area in the emergency room, as well as if they are coming to your outpatients clinic, again, suspected cases should have a separate area. The personnel in COVID positive cases should have full PPEs. These are the WHO recommendations, and they were followed very strictly, particularly in our institution. Then the Americans and the European societies, they came up with their next proper protocols. And what they said was their personal protection is minimum number of theater staff should be there in the operating room. All staff should wear PPEs. This is for COVID positive patients. And postpone all elective cases, minimize face-to-face consultation, virtual MDT meetings. Then for laparoscopy, they said there is little evidence that minimally invasive surgery risk specific to COVID-19. There are proven benefits of reduced length of stay and fewer complications. The devices have to have a filter released CO2, and also you minimize the use of energy devices. Now, for practical measures, they recommended consent should cover the risk of COVID-19. All patients tested they should be tested prior to surgery, whether COVID positive or negative. There should be dedicated OR for COVID-19. And the same was recommended for endoscopies as well. Now, coming back to elective laparoscopic surgery, when we started elective laparoscopic surgery, when the government lifted the restrictions on the outpatients clinic, then we thought of starting elective laparoscopic surgery. But obviously, we were really concerned that we shouldn't get our staff infected, and at the same time, it should be safe for our patients as well. Now, the word started, the recommendations were that you should start laparoscopic surgery at a time when there is downward trend of the virus in the community. In our case, initially, the virus was quite steady, and we thought it was not going to affect. It's a different story that it was during Ramadan or quite close to Eid, where many factors were against us. That includes our government, our politicians, our judiciary, our traders, our clergy, all of them. They thought that the game is over and we are out of it. This is unfortunate that after Eid, there is a big surge of the virus in the community, and our hospitals are, as a result, overwhelmed as well. Coming back to the topic now, there was gradually there was more awareness about the behavior of the virus, but surgeons were still reluctant to start bariatric surgery particularly. But ultimately, our societies across the globe, they came up with the recommendations that bariatric surgery should be started in selective cases, particularly for patients whose BMI is below 50, or the patients who have life-threatening comorbidities, that they would definitely, those are the patients who would benefit from bariatric surgery. Now, there was little evidence regarding the relative risk so laparoscopic surgery versus the conventional open approach specific to COVID-19. There were strong recommendations to respect the possibility of viral contamination to staff, even utilizing appropriate protective measures. Again, about the aerosol, it was quite a big concern about the aerosolization in the beginning, but gradually there were a few recommendations from American College of Surgeons, Wright College of Surgeons, and what they said was there is insufficient data to recommend for or against an open versus laparoscopic approach. And the Royal College of Surgeons recommends consider laparoscopy in selected individual. SAGEs advocate for the use of filters for the release CO2 during laparoscopy. We'll come to that now. What we are doing at Shifa and how we started our elective surgeries, including laparoscopic surgeries, once the OPDs were opened up by the government. But we started surgeries after developing proper protocols. And our protocols were in line with the international recommendations. Now, we had to start with one patient, one attendant policy. We do not allow more than one attendants with one patient. The OPD protocols are that we have three systems in place. One is purely virtual consultation, second is hybrid, and third is in-person. Face mask is mandatory, compulsory for the doctor, healthcare worker, as well as for the patient and the attendant. Now, from the beginning, I'm very, very much promoting face mask. Luckily, there is growing agreement on the importance of face mask. So what we do is COVID test within 48 hours prior to admission. That is our strict policy. Any patient who is coming for surgery must have his COVID test done within 48 hours, not 5 days ago, not a week ago, no, within 48 hours. If the test is negative, the patient comes for admission. If the test is positive, we defer surgery. Now, for bariatric surgery particularly, we recommend that the patient should have 1 week of isolation at home. They shouldn't visit the markets, they shouldn't go to the public places and all. There is pre-anesthesia assessment before admission, and that is at the outpatient's clinic before admission, prior to admission. Now, admission only once the COVID result is available, as I mentioned, and admission is on the day of surgery. We do not recommend admission a day prior to surgery. That is to minimize the length of stay or the exposure of the patient to the hospital environment. A consent is taken routinely from all patients about the possible problem they might have with the COVID. And we recommend early discharge, like in bariatric surgery, Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and sleeve gastrectomy are the two most frequently done procedures in our hospital. And normal stay used to be 48 hours. Now we have minimized it to 24 hours. And now, in operation theater, what we do, we recommend that every person who is in the operation theater must use N95 mask, whether surgeon, assistant, or a scrub nurse. I'm not talking about the anesthesia department. Dr. Ashraf is following me in a minute or two. He will talk about the anesthesia problems and protocols. There is a face shield or goggles that we use for every laparoscopic or open procedure. Only essential staff is required in the operation theater. We don't recommend observers or medical students or other trainees at this stage. Now, starting the procedure, we make precisely small incisions for the trocar. I personally prefer Varus needle. We secure the trocars. We keep the insufflation pressure at between 10 and 12 millimeter of mercury. That is to minimize the aerosol effect. Now, electrosurgery devices, they are kept at the lowest possible settings. Monopolar diathermy with attached smoke evacuation is recommended. Now, we don't have these sort of portable equipments, but we have other ways, like they recommend that pneumoperitoneum should be evacuated via a filtration system before closure. So what we do is we use a sucker to desufflate, and then we remove suppose the specimen or before closure of the laparoscopic wounds. Now, the smoke evacuation device, again, we haven't got that, and they should have a suction and a filtration system, but I'm sure they will be soon available everywhere, but in our country, I don't think any center have it at the moment. Excuse me. Now, what happens if we came across some mishaps as well? It's not always win-win story. Like we had exposure, all the staff, we were doing open splenectomy for a patient who had a TTP and a platelet count was very low or not responding to medical treatment. So we did the procedure. Now this particular patient had his COVID test done 5 days ago, and that was negative. Now, there was some confusion whether or misunderstanding about the COVID status, but I was told, or we were told, that the patient is negative. So we went ahead and we did the procedure. When we finished, we got a call that the patient had a test sent and that has come out as positive. Now, if you come across this sort of a scenario, the whole theater staff, or particularly those working in that particular room, they were panicky. So what is going to happen? Luckily, the procedure which was done about 12, 13 days ago, I think, and so far all the people who worked in that operation theater, they have no symptoms whatsoever. I must mention it again, everybody was wearing N95 mask, coming back to that. The other important thing I want to mention is, but I don't want to give a wrong message across that you shouldn't be careful. The precautions, protocols must be followed. But if you come across this sort of a scenario, luckily, our theaters 13 and 14, OR 14, 13, they are used specifically and only for laparoscopic surgeries, including bariatric surgery. None of the staff till this date is infected in those two theaters with COVID-19. Alhamdulillah. In conclusion, let me conclude now. The advantages of laparoscopic surgery in COVID-19 pandemic, this is decreased length of hospital stay and in turn increasing availability of beds in a limited resource area or region, less traumatic in case of COVID-19 positive patient, improved survival and faster recovery. Laparoscopy allows for self-contained operative field with less and possibly no spillage of fluids and tissues. There is less post-operative complications. So, laparoscopic surgery is quite safe in COVID pandemic, provided precautions are recommended, which are recommended or as recommended by WHO are taken. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Dr. Ghulam Siddique. You made it so simple. And I think staying to basics is what keeps your patient safe, and you can continue your patient care, especially with laparoscopy. So we'll move on to the next presenter, Dr. Mohammad Ashraf, who's the Chief of Anesthesiology at Shifa International Hospital. And Dr. Ashraf is very well versed, and he's going to tell you what kind of preparation he has done, especially in an OR after the COVID-19 pandemic, and what kind of steps he has taken for safeguarding the patients and the healthcare staff and the hospital environment. Dr. Ashraf.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Ghulam Siddique, and thank you very much, Dr. Ejaz. And Assalamu alaikum to everyone who are listening me. And thank you very much for participation. And as we know that participation is increasing, and definitely the education and all sharing the experience is very much important. Today, we are going to discuss the preparation of urgent and emergency surgeries. And just a very short introduction, the coronavirus disease outbreak has been designated as a public health emergency of international concern. And the current understanding of the SARS-CoV-19 transmission is based on extrapolation from past experience. And possible mode of transmission include respiratory droplets, contact, fomites, and the fecal-oral route. Airborne transmission of any respiratory infectious disease is difficult to prove or to definitely exclude. Shifa International Hospital is a tertiary care hospital. I would like to highlight the challenges as a tertiary care hospital. For example, to identify and anticipate the problems ahead of time, making a policy of the hospital, taking into consideration of our own environment, resources, expertise, human resource and facility, developing a team in anesthesia and operating rooms, define a clear role to team leaders and their members. Talking about the facility, we divided the facility into 3 areas for suspected or confirmed patients. We'll discuss later on about the negative pressure room. For clean or tested patient, the patients, when the PCR is negative, our facility is dedicated for those patients. Like as Dr. Ghulam Siddique mentioned, for bariatric surgeries and all those surgeries, and area for laboring patients. And to identify the need of every area, for example, every patient with pregnancy can come at any time, and patient and the delivery and the labor pain will not wait whether the patient is tested or not. So we have to take into the consideration of every area. And still, to prepare for a pandemic, hospital need a strategy to manage their space, staff, supplies, so the optimal care is provided to the patient. In addition, infection prevention measures need to be implemented to reduce in-hospital transmission. In the operating room, these preparations involve multiple stakeholders and can present a significant challenge. For example, these are the pictures where we involve that and challenges. In failing to anticipate and address the PPE issues, healthcare workers may threaten not only personal, colleague, and family safety, but patient safety as well. Healthcare professional performing and assisting with aerosol generating procedures and therapies are included in the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, very high occupational exposure risk, and these are fall in a high risk category. Aerosol particles are generated during all invasive airway procedures, non-invasive and positive pressure ventilation, support modes, suction, induction, high flow oxygen delivery, aerosolized or nebulized medication delivery, interventions that stimulate coughing, and healthcare workers need to be sufficiently trained for donning and doffing of PPE. We talk about the PPE, but generally the main focus should be on the donning and doffing. All emergency surgery patients need a special mode of transportation from ER to operating room. I don't want to go into the detail, but everything has been clearly defined in the policy. Route was cleared. Everybody is supposed to, there is a role of the central command room in our hospital when such type of the patient is being moved from emergency or some floor, and all those measures are taken. All operating rooms are by design are positive pressure. It is world over, but unfortunately for this problem, for effective airflow, filtration control, emergency operating room need to be converted to the negative pressure, preferably with HEPA filters. donning and doffing area need to be completely separate from elective procedure preparation areas, and donning area cleaning by housekeeping staff with safety protocol and shifting or recovering the patient, suspected COVID patient. One step which is very much important, educational and training workshops conducted via online resources to all operating room staff. Donning and doffing video was made available online on YouTube, and protocol developed ahead of time. Practice of sound respiratory, hand, personal, and workplace hygiene was ensured. Provision of adequate PP. One operating room on our one facility and other are specifically for the labor room dedicated for emergency surgery of suspected or positive patients. Infection control department was taken on board for prevention of infection and conversion of our 2 operating rooms into negative pressure room with HEPA filters and declared them dedicated OR for emergency surgeries. All communication is conducted via OR front desk to limit the staff exposure to the patient. You can see the picture of our front desk. All dire emergencies are considered positive for COVID-19. All emergencies taken to the OR within 10 minutes to 1 hour are considered COVID positive. And all precautions, standard precautions are taken. All emergency taken to OR within 2 to 3 hours will have mandatory COVID testing and surgery performed after results. As Dr. Ghulam Siddique mentioned that in the late week of March, last week of March, we stopped all elective surgeries and we focused on emergency and urgent surgeries. And below you can see the reference of hospital policy for patient requiring surgery and procedures. And it is, what are the precautions and preparation in the operating room? This is the picture of our own operating room. We can see that there is a negative pressure room, use of portable HEPA filters, and the HEPA filters is also already mounted in the ceiling. Minimize equipment inside the room, doors to be kept closed during the procedure, or must be restricted or isolated for everyone. Only specific people should go who are to be must be inside the operating room. Same OR or same anesthesia workstation to be used for all COVID cases during this pandemic. We can see that, for example, how we develop a protocol. We highlighted all these. We had a rehearsal. We have a mock drill. For example, in the picture, you can see the patient to taken directly to OR from the ER or from the ICU. Then entry for the patient is there. Then you can see the arrow for the passage of the donning area, and from the donning area, we can see from donning area, the airway. After that, we can see the patient is in the operating room, airway is secured with adequate PP, and after that, the surgeon wearing the sterilized gown over PP. What are the PP? Primarily, while we are doing the surgery, you can see in the picture also, for example, there's a hazmat suit, N95 mask, and over N95 mask, one surgical mask for over protection is there. Protective goggles or face shield, waterproof shoe cover, long boots, sterile disposable waterproof gown, and disposable gloves. Very important reminder, you can see in the picture as well, disposable surgical drapes. Donning of PP occurs outside the operating room. Only sterile gown and gloves should be donned inside OR after hand antisepsis. Maintaining the PP supply, dedicated equipment, anesthesia and medication cart and trolleys. Defined role of each team member with detailed education of the OR staff. Runner outside or will retrieve medication and transfer of the patient through designated access pathway. And for example, in our case, when the patient is moving, our central control room is informed. One person from the security who is clearing the path, and one person from the housekeeping is after the patient, and where the patient is moving from those designated corridors, it is being cleaned by the housekeepers simultaneously. And third, waste management and PP handling and disposal. Preoperative care, the preoperative staff will go directly to the patient room and receive and handover as per protocol. The patient is being brought directly into the operating room. Safe surgery protocol is observed. Patient will be directly shifted, moved to the operating room. All patients should wear a mask. It is mandatory in our hospital that every patient, whether he is COVID positive or negative, he should wear a mask. Dedicated senior surgery staff will assist. You can see a picture, all those people who are our heroes, we can show them, they are with us. Strict universal precautions, entrance restricted to authorized staff only, disposable items are used, and standard intraoperative care, door kept closed during the procedure. All disposable items, supplies, and which is important for the anesthesiologist, double filter used on inspiratory and expiratory hose, HME filters are being used. Routine post-op care with precaution inside the room. The patient is not recovered. For example, if the patient is supposed to be shifted in the COVID's floor, the patient has not come to the post-anesthesia care unit. Patient will be recovered in the operating room, so there should be minimum exposure of the people and the place. All specimen will be sent to lab in proper container and double bag precautions. OR will be washed with neutral water and detergent, and surface decontamination and fumigation done with hydrogen peroxide. I especially mentioned the heroes, and they are from the housekeeping department. We can see now he is ready and he is doing that. And minimum 2 hours allotted in between 2 cases, for example, for the cleaning and everything. And another problem is that the waste management and Mayas, dedicated housekeeping staff wearing proper PPE. You can see here the picture, the designated bags, and that is all the staff. All items used in procedure will be disposed in biohazard containers or yellow bag. Solidifier used in all fluid waste and disposed in yellow bag, so that there should be no spillage of all these fluids. All waste will be disposed immediately from operating room. What about the instrument if we have used during the procedure, and what to do with that? After procedure, instruments are placed in a dedicated biohazard container or plastic bag inside OR before sending to the CSSD. CSSD staff will receive used instruments with universal precautions and proper PEP, and specific area is specified for these instruments, and instruments will be washed 3 cycles in auto washer with approved chemicals. Sharps will be placed in separate sharp container and disposed of immediately. And what about the anesthesia workstation for post-operative? Deep cleaning of the anesthesia machine and all accessories with approved solution of surface disinfection. Blood cuff, either we use the invasive or non-invasive, must be disposed or wasted with approved detergent and washed with approved detergent. Soda lime must be changed and should be marked date, time, and staff name, that who has changed it and when it was changed. Deep cleaning the medication trolley and cupboard. And at the end, I would like to say, hopes that together we will create a better future. And thank you very much indeed.
इसके लिए वो है अच्छा एक ही Thank you ji. So we are ready for question answer. Okay, good, excellent presentation. I know that there are a lot of questions which are generated because we don't cover all aspects and it's not possible. So anyway, we will move on to the question part. Okay, since sensitivity of COVID testing methods is not 100%, it's not available everywhere in Pakistan, will resumption of laparoscopy surgery not be risking theater staff at increased risk of infection, Doctor?
Certainly, this is a concern. The reason we are taking all the precautions despite the COVID testing is that COVID testing and test in itself has a sensitivity of about 70%, 70 to 80% maximum. So 20% cases, 25% may still be missed. And that's the reason we are saying that if you take proper precautions by putting on N95 mask, covering your face with a face shield, or using goggles to protect your eyes, and using the proper protocols, I think there is minimal chance of infection. I still would say that people who don't have the COVID testing facility, they should not be embarking on bariatric surgery particularly, and very complex laparoscopic procedures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that answers. Others question, maybe Dr. Ashraf can answer and maybe I can put. कि मुजफ्फर सादिक साहब पूछ रहे हैं कि 1 week home isolation pre-op or post-op when? Or as a recommendation is 2 days pre-op home isolation. In fact, this pre-op home isolation depends upon the time taken for PCR result to be available. आप आंसर कर देंगे?
Assalamu alaikum. Primarily, Dr. Ghulam Sadiq was mentioning 1 week before for bariatric surgery, so that the objective was that if the patient is isolated in the home, there is no community exposure of the patients. And after 7 days, before admission, signs symptoms are checked, the temps, we will follow the universal precautions, and after that, the test is advised. And that was the reason for particularly focusing the 1 week prior to surgery. And for example, if you'll, I think the question was particularly with this scenario.
The other question maybe you can answer, कि you did not mention whether a COVID test, Khalid Rashid साहब पूछ रहे हैं कि got to be done at your hospital or an outside test is acceptable?
We have a policy. Number one, we accept preference is the test performed in our hospital. There are 3 institutions where we accept the hospital: NIH, Aga Khan, and Shaukat Khanum hospitals. And in rest of the areas, as a policy, we don't accept that. The only accept in a way if the test is positive.
Next question for you, Doctor. Sabah Ijaz पूछ रही हैं कि what is the best strategy for protecting anesthesia machine from contamination by potentially infected patient?
Yes. As I mentioned in my presentation, for example, if you put 2 HME filters and you change the soda lime, it is an over extra care. Even though in the literature it is recommended on the expiratory limb, you can put 1 HME filter. But in our policy, we recommend that we should do 2 HME filters on an expiratory and inspiratory limb. And number 2, the soda lime should be changed after every COVID positive patients. And when you are taking these precautions, you can save rest of your anesthesia machine. Only the surface contamination will be there, which is in the room. And we use hydrogen peroxide through a machine which covers and air disinfection.
Very pertinent question, Mohd Asif Saab is asking Dr. Ghulam Sadiq, कि discharging patients early, will it cause problems for patients? Because post-op operation problems like which occur in 48 hours and doctors are available now, you're discharging at 24 hours. So is there a potential that they will have more problems or you will miss it?
No, honestly, we so far we don't have any problems with that. Rather, patients are more satisfied with this approach. Because the early you discharge them, bariatric patients in particular, or any, the gallbladders can go, there are, even before the COVID pandemic, many centers would do straightforward cases as a day case, like laparoscopic surgery they would do in the morning and they would discharge them in the evening. For bariatric surgery, I think the first 24 hours, if you look at the centers, busy centers in the West, they believe in keeping them for 24 hours. We were the ones who were keeping it for another extra 24 hours to make sure. That was a sort of a practice which we started in the beginning. When we started our procedures, we wanted to be absolutely sure that there's no problem with in terms of leak or or post-op bleeding and all that. But these things would be obvious within 24 hours. The next 24 hours, you want to see whether the patient is tolerating liquid or not tolerating. And I think we are quite comfortable.
They can always come back and
They can, yeah.
follow up. Or,
That's not, and many of my patients particularly, they have my contact number, they can call me anytime. So far, we have done about 8 laparoscopic bariatric procedures, and alhamdulillah, they all went very well. But mind you that we try to keep the BMI or select the patients with a BMI below 50. Thank you.
Mustafa, I think with this answer you already. Are you performing this procedure on COVID positive patients as well? And an emergency if the patient is suspected or confirmed positive, what do you recommend? PAPR?
You mean bariatric patients?
Yes.
No, bariatric patients, when I mentioned it in my talk as well, if they are COVID positive or suspected or not tested, but they come in emergency, emergency is emergency. We have to use full PPEs, and we can do that even laparoscopically. Perforated marginal ulcer or even internal herniation. These are sort of procedures you can do it in an emergency, but with full PPEs. Okay. And if you are not comfortable or if you don't have the facilities, then open them.
Why lab procedure shouldn't be done in HIV and HPV patients?
Which procedures?
A lab procedure, laparoscopic.
Hep C or HIV?
Hep C and HIV are different. These are sort of HB, HC, these are blood-borne procedures. But here, the virus is mainly in the lungs. So it's a respiratory virus. And I think it's a very controversial topic, so whether it's a lot of it is in the body fluids or not. So that's the reason.
If N95 is not available, then KN95 is okay, Dr. Ashraf?
No, this particular question must be asked with infectious disease, but I would like to tell you, but in the early stage, this is a very common question which comes in mind of everybody. At present, we are wearing this KN95 mask because the original N95 mask, which was either from the America or the England, it was available, and the rest of the people, especially during the swine flu period, people have seen those masks. And suddenly the problem, when this problem started in the market, there was that particular N95 mask of particular brand was not available. And even we discussed this problem early in our hospital, and we shared all those information given by KN95 mask and filtration and everything and layers. And after this discussion with the infectious disease and all the stakeholders, we recommend that KN95 is equally good, and the only thing is to ensure a best seal. And that's why I mentioned in my presentation that we can use a surgical mask over this KN95 or N95 mask.
Can we reuse it?
We can reuse the KN95 mask. And especially if we have used in the COVID positive patient, we discard this mask there and then.
Dr. Ashraf, aapke liye, what to do if the OT complex staff, residents, consultants start coming positive with every day, 1 to 2% coming positive? Should the OT be sealed and fumigated?
Interesting question, for example. And we have to decide this first, whether this infection is from the operating room, from the patients, or from the healthcare providers themselves. They are bringing this infection from the community. It is a question which is generally we ask world over, where our colleagues and anesthesia federations and associations are there. Operating room at that time cannot be sealed. This is the overall protocol. All the healthcare providers, they should be asymptomatic. They cannot be tested on daily basis. The PCR is maximally valid only for 72 hours or 48 to 72 hours. The reason is that the tracing is very much important. I can direct request Dr. Ejaz, who is a consultant in infectious disease, he can answer is better. But on my part, I will say that in operating room, we have to trace all those implies, and we should see what is the source of infection. One possibility is that infection is coming from the community and particular person is being identified and his context should be traced. Number two, for example, if some patient came in operating room and it was missed in that area, I will say that, as I mentioned, that disinfection is sufficient for that area. Even closing the area is not the answer.
Gee, correct, because I am moderating, so I'm not infectious disease today, but I'm trying to dodge the questions. But anyway, what Dr. Ashraf is saying कि important ये है कि आपकी जो contact tracing है वो होनी चाहिए. जैसे एक staff positive है, तो immediately हमारे जो है ना कान एकदम खड़े हो जाते हैं और हम फौरन देखते हैं कि उनके इर्द गिर्द उनको डायरेक्ट कॉल करते हैं, जो उनके एरिया के मैनेजर को, स्टाफ को, उनको इत्तला करते हैं. एंड देन वी also the suspected or confirmed staff is asked to who came in contact during the symptoms period and 2 days before the symptoms. क्योंकि आपको पता है कि प्री सिम्टोमेटिक स्टेज जब होती है उसके में भी इन्फेक्शन होती है, तो वो लाइकली होते हैं उनको भी पकड़ते हैं. तो उनकी एक लिस्ट बनती है और फिर देन यू ट्राई टू कैटेगराइज रिस्क स्ट्रेटिफिकेशन करते हैं कि हाई रिस्क, लो रिस्क एक्सपोजर हुआ है. तो हाई रिस्क वही है कि फॉर एग्जांपल यू आर इन डायरेक्ट फेस टू फेस with a person and the employee was not wearing a mask and you are not wearing a mask, or you shared something, for example food, एक साथ बैठे एक क्लोज एरिया में बैठे, तो हाई रिस्क में आ जाएगा. और बाकी लो रिस्क समझते हैं. लो रिस्क वालों को हम कहते हैं कंटिन्यू टू वर्क. जो हाई रिस्क कहते हैं उनको कहते हैं आप क्वारंटीन में चले जाएं 5 दिन 7 दिन के लिए और फिर सिम्टम्स आए तो फिर रिपोर्ट करें. ये शुरू में था. अभी तो हमारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है यही है कि गिवन के अ लॉट ऑफ स्टाफ इज कमिंग पॉजिटिव कम्युनिटी में, तो हम सबको एक ही जैसे करते हैं कि ये आप मैक्सिमम प्रिकॉशन लें. और जैसे डॉक्टर अशरफ ने कहा कि डायरेक्ट पेशेंट से जो इन्फेक्शन, हमारे ख्याल में, हमारे एक्सपीरियंस में ये कहता है कि डायरेक्ट इन्फेक्शन पेशेंट केयर से या पेशेंट एक्सपोजर से इतना नहीं है जितना कि स्टाफ बाहर कम्युनिटी के में एक्सपोज हो रहा है, वहां से आ रहा है सिम्टम्स लेके, या जो है अपने कोलीग से कैच कर रहा है. तो ये अनफॉर्चुनेट है और इसमें हमारी एजुकेशन की जरूरत है. और इसके ऊपर हम रोजाना एम्फसाइज करते हैं. अवेयरनेस भी है, एजुकेशन है, पैम्फलेट्स हैं, वीडियोस बनाई हैं, उनको मल्टीपल मीटिंग्स भी बताई है. शुरू दिन से चल रहा है और ये हमारे एक्सपीरियंस के अलावा हमारे बाकी कोलीग्स बाकी शहरों में वो ये बता रहे हैं कि हमारे स्टाफ में ऐसे ही बिहेवियर्स हो रही हैं जिसकी वजह से उनको इन्फेक्शन हो रही है. अच्छा जी, माशाल्लाह, वेरी सिंपल, इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड, इंटरेस्टिंग इंफॉर्मेशन. जैनब खान पूछ रही थी, व्हाट इज योर एक्सपीरियंस इन डूइंग सर्जरी यूजिंग पीपीई एंड N95, स्पेशली ओपन सर्जरीज?
I have never used PPEs, to be honest with you.
This is PPE.
No, they want hazmat suits and all that. That is only for COVID positive patients and or suspected positive patients. And I think it's the best you can get as a surgeon to protect yourself and to protect, obviously for the personnel working with you in the operating room. जितने भी मेरे colleagues ने use किए, they think it's a very tough job. To use them to operate wearing that PPEs. So I haven't had an experience yet, but I would love to use it when needed. I don't think.
एक और scalpel versus electrocautery while operating patients, emergency patients, कौन सा आप करेंगे? Scalpel versus electrocautery.
Electrocautery, I do use electrocautery because I'm used to that. The other thing is, if you start using things which you don't use routinely, you might make mistakes, and you can't afford that in this COVID pandemic, particularly. But about the diathermy setting, I mentioned it in my talk as well, that you should keep it to the lowest possible level to minimize the smoke.
Thank you. Khalid Rashid Sahab पूछ रहे हैं जी, would the face shield allow the surgical loops to be used as well as coronary artery surgery is not possible or hazardous without magnifying loops? ये कोई पता है कोई चीज? हाँ जी.
I know this is the problem, and goggles can be used, and your loops can be adjusted on your goggle or glasses. Objective is that the eyes should be protected. And when you are wearing the face mask and the KN95 mask or over that mask, and it is very difficult when you are using the loop and over face shield. But in our operating room, I think these face shields may permit it. For example, there is a space in between that. But I would say that as far as I have gone through the literature and articles, people are using over the goggles.
एक और आपके लिए कि should we be using VL versus DL for intubations?
And if you are taking care of wearing all appropriate PP, you can do the direct laryngoscopy for those patients. And when it is available and somebody is expert, he can use that. Thank you.
अच्छा जी, एक है कि the hazmat provided currently are too small, they appear to be too short, slightly taller, resulting in staff having to cut holes in the feet, defeating impulse. Can we get larger size?
Of course, why not?
Shrink yourself.
We should try to get larger size.
एक और है कि this becomes a disposable OR. That will increase the cost of care to a patient, already suffering patient. Any solution for this problem? No.
Generally, it is a constraint when we are thinking about that we are using a disposable things. We have to keep a balance between safety and the cost. And when we talk about the safety is my preference. And we should try to take those measures where we can cut the price. There should be no luxury and extra usage of these items. That's why I try to mention that minimum specific numbers of the people should be present in the operating room. But when we are talking about the safety, I would like to, that safety should be preference.
Do you use a intubation box during endotracheal intubation? Is video endotracheal intubation being used in every case?
No. We are not using the mask, which is generally in the sites and seen in various places, but we use in difficult airway, we use the video laryngoscope, and in conventional, in average airway, we use laryngoscope.
Which masks are used in general OPD or by other staff? Simple surgical mask.
Simple surgical mask is enough.
What is the protocol for intubation of COVID patients?
Yes. While we are intubating a COVID patient, first, as we mentioned, that full PPE, for example, the hazmat suit, the face shield, the goggles, and the KN95 mask. Over the KN95, there should be a surgical mask. And when you are using that, we use the muscle relaxant. I mentioned in my presentation when we're using the IPP, and that is the time when the patient is air is being expired into the environment. And at that time, the patient should be pre-oxygenated first for 2 to 3 minutes. And after the muscle relaxations, we only use the oxygen, but should not use IPP. And when you are not going to use the IPPV, it means your patient is being oxygenated, but you are not ventilating the patient. And this is the strategy I generally teach in my students and my colleagues. You consider this patient as a full stomach patient. You should take the maximum precautions not to ventilate and pre-oxygenate the patient first. And in case if you have to compromise on the oxygen saturation, for example, it comes to 95% or 93%, for the moment it does not make a much difference for 20-30 seconds.
वही question है जो सफीना नदीम, I think we were discussing only last 48 hours. If a patient is positive, recovered from COVID-19, now it is coming back for surgical procedure, his PCR again positive and antibodies reactive, it is recommended that we will treat patient post-op as negative one as he or she recovered from the disease. So then, is it necessary to COVID-19 again who received in the past, who recovered in the past, or who?
And this question is being discussed for the last 3 days with the infectious disease, with the surgeons, with pathologists, and all these. And we have reached a conclusion: if the patient is positive, COVID positive, we will wait for 14 days. Either the patient will improve, either the disease may progress. If the patient remains after 14 days, if the patient remains asymptomatic and 72 hours temperature free, we will refer the patient to the ID, infectious disease, so they can evaluate the patient. At the moment, I'm not going to involve the HRCT at this moment. We are not, at current practice, we are not suggesting to repeat the PCR for this patient because the PCR may be positive for next 4 weeks. And we are not going to confuse somebody with the target 1 positive and target 2 positive. We do serology after 14 days. But mind it, the serology should be after 14 days when the patient is entering into the 3rd week. If the patient has developed, the serology is reactive, it means the patient has developed immunity, and now we should consider patient as a negative. But my first 2 points, they should always be considered. 1, 2, the patient should be asymptomatic, and number 2, patient should be temperature free for the last 72 hours.
Okay, the bottom line is that at least 14 days from illness, 3 days afebrile, symptoms resolved or improved significantly, and antibody positive, and ID will clear that patient for surgery. Correct, Dr. Ashraf?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Tell me about bariatric surgery. या फिर आप बाद में इतने ये तो लंबा सवाल है. Do all the theaters have negative pressure and filters, and any chance of more N95 being available for staff, particularly theater staff?
Yes, available.
So N95 negative pressure.
We have at the current, we have 2 operating rooms, negative pressure operating rooms, and they are dedicated for emergency and COVID positive patients. Where we do the laparoscopic surgery, our all operating rooms are with HEPA filters. But as I mentioned, that all operating room are positive pressure as by design. And we are not performing the bariatric surgery of all those patients who are tested negative, and they are the surgery is being performed in a routine operating room.
Thank you. दूसरा सवाल आपसे यह कि जो शिफा के प्रोटोकॉल्स आप फॉलो कर रहे हैं, very good, but are we doing any audit during this crisis?
Yes, the audit is that in a way that we have in daily, we have a meeting of many people who are with various specialties, with various expertise, with various exposures and experiences. And we review, and sometime we discuss something, and after 2-3 days on evidence base, we change our protocols. At present, I would like to say that nothing is definite. We should be flexible, we should be acceptable, and we should accept that new guidelines are coming. For example, even including the airway, including the management, including the treatment, this is a fluid situation. And when we make a mistake, we should sit together, or we are sitting and we revise and we make another protocol, so that there should be, when we use the collective wisdom, the chances of mistakes are reduced.
Dr. Meher Taj Roghani said, congratulations to our organizer and to my proud student.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
अच्छा जी, दूसरा ये है कि इम्पोर्टेंट इतने अच्छे जो सवाल है, तो I don't know when to stop, but actually we can go on for maybe 5 more minutes. Are HME filters that are available commonly set to filter 7 microns being used at Shifa?
HMEF, primarily the H filters are being used at Shifa, and especially for in a protocol for every surgery, even before the COVID pandemic, we are using HME filters for every patient, and we discard our breathing circuit, we discard that filter as well. But for COVID positive patient, we use 2 filters on expiratory and inspiratory limb, and we also change the soda line to take the extra care.
Thank you. दूसरा सवाल शायद मैं कर दूं. How long does it take for a 25-year-old to recover? Well, it depends on that individual's immunity. If he is a healthy adult, young, and no comorbids, then there is a almost 100% chance for them to recover. If they have underlying problems, if they have severe disease, then they can take time, which is about 2 weeks maximum. But otherwise, mostly that I've come across that our staff who's younger, they recover within less than 10 days. TAH and BSO procedure can be performed in a woman who is 55-year-old?
It depends upon the indication. For example, if it is indicated, it can be performed. And if we can wait, and at present scenario, I would like to say we can defer for a few weeks, and especially in our taking in consideration the environment and the disease pattern in our country. But there is no hard principle, for example, that that elective surgeries at current practice and keeping in view our own facility, we should take that whether we are able to testing the patient or not. In our setup, I would like to advise that we can perform this procedure for this patient.
दूसरा सवाल है, is plasma permanent solution of COVID-19? Of course not, because this is an evolving situation. और ये plasma और इस तरह की हाइड्रोक्लोरोक्विन पे आया, HCQ पे पहले बहुत ही controversy थी. जो treatment है, unfortunately we do not have a permanent or a definite treatment available as yet. All these drugs are in trial. तो अभी जो पहले ट्रायल जो सही तरह किसी ने किया, जो कि वो यूके से है, जिसको उन्होंने कहा थी steroids in those who need oxygen or those who have got severe disease or intubated. In those, dexamethasone cuts their mortality by 1/3. तो वो ये एक definite answer हमें मिला है अभी तक. तो बाकी जो प्लाज्मा वगैरह अभी तक नहीं है. Alhamdulillah, we are JCI accredited. Has JCI contributed any guidelines recommendation for elective surgeries in COVID positive patients?
We got so many other respected societies, surgical societies, particularly Royal Colleges, European societies, American societies, IFSO and all that, we don't need the JCI recommendations. We are already following the JCI. We've been JCI accredited, and they were supposed to visit us again last year. But because of this pandemic, they canceled their visit. So the JCI protocols are all in place, but we obviously for
COVID
surgery, no, nothing specific, no.
So not COVID specific, okay. दूसरा urologic endoscopic surgery, is it, should it be followed like laparoscopic procedures?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
It's the same procedure.
Same procedure. Ruhullah पूछते हैं कि from sir, one question from anesthesia expert: can you recommend a face mask to a patient on spinal surgery for a few surgeries if he is not tested so far?
First, I will talk about our hospital and our policy. Every patient who comes in operating room, whether when he is tested, he has to wear the face mask. In the pre-operative area and during the surgery, while the surgery is being performed, especially in the spinal anesthesia. As we discussed, that we know the sensitivity of the PCR is 70 to 80%, and we should consider every patient as a potential positive patient, and we should try to keep maximum care.
ये आपके लिए any benefit of trying to convert COVID positive patients safely from GA to regional anesthesia, spinal nerve, if feasible to reduce risk to all? Obviously, it will not work for all cases, but if clinically possible.
When you are talking about that when we are doing regional anesthesia for these patients, there is a chances of because we are directly involved in the airway management, and when we switch over to from general anesthesia to the regional anesthesia, there is a reasonable reduction in the direct exposure of the anesthesiologist. and especially for those procedures which can be performed under regional anesthesia and should be done. And for example, in cesarean sections and the surgery and below the T7, it can be performed. But when it is indicated, we should not be reluctant to administer the general anesthesia for taking care of the standard precautions.
ठीक है, बाकी मास्क के बारे में बहुत पूछा लोगों ने, तो देयर आर रिकमेंडेशन आई थिंक कि रिप्लेसमेंट कैसे करनी है, उनकी सफाई कैसे करनी है. आई थिंक जनरली जो मास्क आप पहनेंगे तो वो आप N95 का खास करके, तो यू कैन यूज इट एज लॉन्ग एज पॉसिबल till they are obviously worn out, torn, wet, तो तब तक आप जी, और contaminated, obviously contaminated, तो you can use it. So usually वो कुछ दिन तक चल सकता है, ठीक है ना, ऐसे ही है ना, बल्कि एक हफ्ता या शायद उससे भी ज्यादा. What do you do if patients who insist they don't need to be tested as they don't have any symptoms and insist on treatment without test? Should we refuse to treat them?
This is a common problem. And I think as a healthcare provider, we should refuse. We should educate the person that it is for your safety, and for rest of the people who are treating you for their safety, it is in the interest of all persons who are providing you the health care as well as for your safety. Otherwise, we have a certain protocol. If the patient is not being tested, we pass through that patient through the red zone where all positive patients are there. And when we should talk this patient, and patients are very smart. They understand their benefit first.
Dr. Ghulam Siddique, ये बताएं कि do you perform surgeries in those patients who have severe chest infiltrate, their oxygen saturation is below 80, or first you optimize the patients?
You optimize the patient, obviously. You don't operate on those patients. You have to optimize those patients. With severe infiltrates in the chest, my anesthesiologist will straight away refuse to put the patient to sleep. Thank you.
इसलिए इनके साथ आपकी लड़ाई ज्यादा होती है. अच्छा जी, तो दूसरा है कि है री इन्फेक्शन का कई पोषण, एक दफा इन्फेक्शन होगी तो री इन्फेक्शन, तो री इन्फेक्शन किसी को पता नहीं है ये भी कि री इन्फेक्शन होती है नहीं होती, मोस्ट लाइकली नहीं होती, लेकिन इसका एविडेंस अभी क्लियर नहीं है. मोस्ट लाइकली कम से कम इमीडिएट या शॉर्ट टर्म में तो नहीं होता.
There is a possibility, for example, the people say that there are, still it comes in literature that there are 3 types of the viruses which infect for the corona family. And there is a possibility, though we has put this question in front of the pathologists and we requested for that, there is a possibility on theoretical ground, if the person is infected from one virus, the person may be infected by another virus. And at that present, at this limited time, as I mentioned earlier, everything is fluid. We cannot say anything with the definite that whether the patient can infect. It is theoretical that people are saying in literature that there is a quite reasonable, there is a possibility that patient may be infected. And still we don't know what will be the time and when the patient will be infected. Even if you are going to ask me when you are going to do the serology, whether this serology will persist or for how long, the question at the moment, exactly we don't know.
Is it true that an emergent cardiac case has to be done in a totally different setting? For example, अगर हम यहाँ कहेंगे कि B wing में old OR5 में होता.
To be very honest, up till yet, it is very difficult question that because we have not developed any, it can be done in negative pressure operating room, but up till yet, we are thinking about that, but we have not done any case which is COVID positive. There are so many other factors which we should consider before we should move towards the emergency surgery. For example, when the patient is symptomatic, patient has to go on the pump, there is increased chances of the respiratory problems, and quite it is a debate whether this will benefit the patient or not.
ठीक हो गया. दूसरे बहुत से क्वेश्चन है. एक तो है कि सेम वेंटिलेटर, do the patients have to wear mask during surgery, doctor? No.
Yes.
नहीं, during surgery आपने तो intubate किया हुआ है उसको.
Intubate करके फिर भी उसकी secretions के लिए mask.
Okay. So you put a mask around the endotracheal tube, even intubated. ठीक है. So you wear the mask. Is the same ventilator machine can be used for multiple patients during ER procedures, elective procedures? What will be the protocols regarding current COVID? इनकी क्लिनिक का शायद पूछ रहे हैं.
In my presentation, if you listened at the end, what about how to take care of the workstation anesthesia machine or anesthesia workstation? I mentioned that a specific machine should be there for the COVID or suspected patients, and we try to retain that machine in that particular area, number one. And number two, and when we are using this HME filters and you change these precautions, you clean air infections, you can use that. And especially for the where limited number of anesthesia machines, it can be used.
दूसरा इम्पोर्टेंट है ये पूछ रहे हैं कि हैजमेट्स आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड डॉक्टर मुजफ्फर सादिक पूछ रहे हैं सदीक कि व्हाई हैजमेट सूट्स व्हाई लॉन्ग बोट शू कवर्स फॉर एग्जांपल द वायरस कैन नॉट गो थ्रू स्किन वी नीड टू बी केयरफुल प्रोटेक्टिंग आवर एयर पैसेजेस आईज ईयर्स तो नहीं है ईयर्स किसी ने पूछा ईयर्स से तो नहीं होता लेकिन म्यूकोजा फॉर एग्जांपल माउथ है नोज है या आईज है उसके थ्रू बिल्कुल ठीक बहुत अच्छा सवाल है तो हेजमेट सूट की क्यों पहनते हैं आप थोड़ा सा इसको रोशनी डालें या मैं डालूंगा आप डालें आप ही डालें बेसिकली देखें ना ये तो ठीक है स्किन के थ्रू नहीं होता लेकिन ये इबोला तो होता था और इसका हमें नहीं पता मोस्ट लाइकली नहीं होता लेकिन अगर आपने आपके क्लोथ्स या स्किन कंटेमिनेट हो जाए ड्यूरिंग द पेशेंट केयर और फिर आप उसको टच करते हैं फिर अपनी माउथ को उसको टच करते हैं उसमें गड़बड़ है फिर तो उसके थ्रू होता है उसके लिए है और ये आपकी बिल्कुल ठीक है इसमें और एविडेंस नहीं है कि बूट्स के थ्रू या आपने पहना है लेकिन आप जब किसी कमरे में जा रहे हैं वहाँ पे पेशेंट की सिक्रीशंस हैं वहाँ पे फ्लोर है जो कि कंटेमिनेट हो जाते हैं एयर में जा रहे हैं तो वो वहाँ पे आपकी इन्वायरमेंट मोस्ट लाइकली एक कोविड के पेशेंट के रूम में आपकी इन्वायरमेंट कंटेमिनेट हो चुकी है तो इसमें तो कोई शक नहीं वहाँ से भी लोगों ने पकड़े और फॉर एग्जांपल हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स के जो चेंजिंग रूम्स है बाथरूम्स है उसमें भी होते हैं वहाँ पे सर्फेसेस होते हैं तो सर्फेसेस पे इंक्लूडिंग व्हाटएवर यू आर वेयरिंग विल हैपन सो यू आर वेयरिंग दिस डिस्पोजेबल नॉन परमिएबल प्रेफरेबल ताकि जो सिक्रीशन जो भी स्प्लैश होता है जो भी होता है आपके स्किन के ऊपर ना पड़े और फिर आपकी स्किन कंटेमिनेट होगी तो फिर देन देयर इज अ चांस यू विल गेट इन्फेक्शन Shifa, doctors, are they doing a post-mortem on COVID patients? No, we are not doing any COVID patients. खिजर पूछ रहे हैं जी ICU से कि अवॉइड पैनिक जो आपने कहा PCR नहीं करना तो इसमें क्लियर कर लें दोबारा ID कंसल्टेंट की जरूरत है तो बिल्कुल वी आर सेइंग कि रीसर्जरी के लिए खास करके और पेशेंट प्लेसमेंट के लिए भी अगर पेशेंट 14 डेज हो चुके हैं बीमारी को और सिम्टम्स फ्री है तो इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ पीसीआर उसको आपने करना है एक दो काम और करने हैं कि इनको आप प्रिकॉशन में रखेंगे लेकिन एडिशनल यू कैन डू सीरोलॉजी टू डॉक्यूमेंट कि उनकी इन्फेक्शन पास्ट इन्फेक्शन बताती है सीरोलॉजी ज्यादातर ठीक है ना तो पास्ट इन्फेक्शन बताएगी तो यू आर क्लियर कि उसको कम से कम रिजॉल्व इन्फेक्शन है इम्यूनिटी का नहीं बताएगी सिर्फ ये बताएगी दूसरा जो है आपने उनको आईडी कंसल्ट कराएं कि देखें कोई ऑनगोइंग सिम्टम्स हो सकते हैं क्योंकि कुछ पेशेंट कैटेगरीज हैं जो कि सिवियर डिजीज वाले हैं या जिनको इम्यूनो कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड हैं उनकी जो इन्फेक्टिविटी है वो उनका नहीं पता उनकी शायद इन्फेक्टिविटी लंबी होती है लेकिन आम मरीज इम्यूनो कॉम्पिटेंट हेल्दी हु हैव रिजॉल्व्ड सिम्टम्स दे आर लेस चांस ऑडिट वीक इन पाकिस्तान वी एक्सपेक्ट शिफा टू पब्लिश एक्सपेरिमेंटल थेरेपीज रिमेंबर दैट वी आर डूइंग दीज जो ड्रग्स हैं जो यूज कर रहे हैं इंक्लूडिंग रेमडेसिविर इंक्लूडिंग टोसी these are not in trial as yet we have enrolled in solidarity trial of WHO which has yet to start in which different trials will be available तो वो बिल्कुल publish होगा excellent talk dear more yes we will do प्लीज गाइड पीपल डोंट यूज डेक्सामेथासोन यस बिल्कुल ये मुझे किसी ने भिजवाया कि खुदा रहा डेक्सामेथासोन की फकियां ना लें और उनको जमा ना करें होल्ड ना करें ये बहुत बड़ी ज्यादती है क्योंकि दिस इज ओनली फॉर सिवियर डिजीज के लिए जो ऑक्सीजन रिक्वायरमेंट जिनकी है जिनको वेंटिलेटर पर इंट्यूबेशन पे है उनकी है तो पेशेंट अगर नेगेटिव हो गया बिफोर सर्जरी वाज पॉजिटिव आफ्टर दैट ये आप बता दीजिए पेशेंट है जो पहले प्री ऑप नेगेटिव था और फिर पॉजिटिव हो गया।
देखें फिर पॉजिटिव होना जो है ना, दैट्स द वे, अगर आप उसको मेडिको लीगल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ले रहे हैं, तो दैट्स व्हाई वी साइन द कंसेंट or undertaking from the patient that you might become COVID positive at any stage during the procedure, after the procedure, even if you go home to your community. तो उसकी कोई as such कोई वो नहीं है. The reason is that some people are more prone to viral infection. These are the immunocompromised patients. These are the patients with a lot of comorbidities and obese patients in particularly. That's why we do not recommend bariatric surgery in very obese patients, particularly if they are otherwise stable, like people whose BMI is more than 50. And that's the whole idea. Once they get infected, their outcome is really bad. Thank you.
If your question was in other context, I would like to say one thing. If you mean if the patient was tested and how the patient can be positive, I mentioned in responding another question that maximum validity of the this PCR is 48 to 72 hours. For example, we tested for routine procedure, we tested a patient today, and patient caught the infection in the morning and the test was done in evening, that result will come as a negative. After 3 days, after 3 to 11 days, patient may become symptomatic. And that's why we recommend that patient should be operated. When we test the patient and turn to be negative, it should be done within 24 hours maximally. And maximally, we can go up to 48 hours. And that is the time when the patient, if the patient has caught the infection, patient will not be symptomatic during the stay in the hospital. We have to educate the people when you are tested negative. This negativity is only for 48 to 72 hours.
Last question, Dr. Monat is asking, what is your view about mass PCR testing? Well, the thing is, if you have the capacity, yes, it will, because the maximum number that you can test will tell you who are positive and who need to take precaution, and that will reduce your burden of disease, of course. Remember that I was just told this morning that government of Pakistan has asked all the laboratories to increase the capacity from 50,000 tests a day across the country to 150,000 per day, because that will increase. So they want to get involved with all the labs, public and private, so your capacity is increased. So I think we will stop here. Thank you very much for these lovely questions and lovely interacting and very interesting. We hope that our answers will satisfy you. It is not always possible to talk about something black and white because things have been changing. Hopefully, our current knowledge, as it says, it will help you in your hospital for the patient safety, especially going under surgery, and your ORs as well for the safety of the healthcare workers. Thank you very much. I will end here, and just to announce that inshallah next week, same time, we'll cover pediatrics and COVID-19. So please join and ask your colleagues. Please spread the word. Thank you very much. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Stay home. Thank you very much.
Stay home and safe.